Human beings have been telling stories since the beginning of time. Gathering around, listening to grand adventure, speaks of our internal longing to experience incredible things and tell tales upon our return. As hunters, we yearn for great adventure, success, failure, and the lessons learned has always been in our DNA. Horns and antlers are a symbol of the experience and adventure that was had. They help us in continuing to celebrate and honor the animal well after the meat has been consumed. The memory of the animal, the adventure, and what it took to achieve that goal will live on in that symbol and be told over and over again. Hunters are conservationists who have a great concern for the well-being of animals, the wildlife populations, and want to see continued growth in wildlife species. The North American model of wildlife conservation is designed to manage population growth, maintain numbers, and aid in taking out a select few each year to help the animal species as a whole and continue to flourish. There are a select number of us who enjoy doing hard things. The planning, preparation, execution, suffering, and coming out heavy on the other side successful is something that calls to us. Challenging and pushing ourselves to the limits to try and reach that level of success, resulting in our hard work paying off with meat in the freezer, food on the table, and sharing our bounty and stories with family and friends is the ultimate goal. This story is no different. Archery has been part of my life since the age of 7. I have a solid connection with the stick and string, and when I got into hunting, it was a natural transition for me to pick up a bow and arrow. This trip out west from Ontario to British Columbia has been in the planning stages for 9 months. I can't believe that it's finally here.
To Vancouver, the local time is 10:48 a.m. As we taxi to the gate, please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened and all carry-on baggage stowed until the aircraft is parked at the gate and the seatbelt sign is turned off.
Hey, all right. My wife, daughter, and mother-in-law drove most of our gear out to BC. My son Logan and I flew out to meet them 5 days later. All good. Meet Danny and my son Logan. Danny is my wife's cousin and my guide for this elk hunt. Danny is a hunter and a guide for Finley River Outfitters. We packed up the truck for our incredible road trip north. The road north is not friendly to vehicles, so preparing for the worst is always a good idea.
You can start to see some better peaks here now, right? See they're logging over there, Logan? Yeah.
Danny's friend, an experienced elk hunter, Boomer, joined us for the hunt. We were fortunate to have a few run-ins with a wild herd of bison that roam the northern parts of BC. After setting up camp, it was time to test out my gear. I had to make sure my bow was still shooting on target after its many hours of travel. That's why. Smoke from the neighboring forest fires swept in to cover the mountains during various portions of the day and evening. We are constantly reminded of BC's beauty while looking out onto the landscape. Heavy packs and excitement for day one had us ready to start our search for a bull elk. In this area, a 6-point bull is legal. That means there must be at least 6 points on one side of their antlers in order for it to be a legal animal to hunt. A mixed terrain of long grass, shrubs, blown down trees, and thick pockets of timber made for interesting navigation. Coyotes were mimicking our elk bugles in this area, which caused us to move to a new location. Our bugles appeared to fall on deaf ears. At least the majority of times we would bugle and get no response. Was it the high bear numbers? Was it too early in the rut? Were they just looking to round up cows at this point? There were many things that could have been at play, causing the bulls not to come to our calls. We found a beautiful stream that had spawning kokanee. Watching them struggle to get upstream to spawn was an awesome experience.
We can smell it. This is what we're looking for. Fucking just travel. Look at this one.
Yeah.
Look at it.
We came upon an area that was recently thrashed by a bull elk. Brush limbs were on the ground and bark scraped off by their antlers. This was an exciting find for us that we were on the right track. We followed fresh tracks all over the terrain in hopes of finding the elk and setting up a stalk. Faint bugles could be heard off in the distance to the south of us, which told us we were in the wrong spot. The elk had been here recently, but were not here now.
Got a pretty awesome find. We just found a moose antler. Shit. Right here. Grab it. Doesn't have that on your head. What do you think? Huge. Yeah, where's the other one?
Seeing Logan's reaction to the moose antler brought a smile to my face. Being able to show him the outdoors and experience it with him is something that we'll never forget. That was the end of a very awesome day one. Up in the mountains, the temperature dropped from 17 degrees Celsius during the day to 0 overnight. This called for cowboy coffee in the morning to warm ourselves up.
Head again and checking a couple of spots we scouted yesterday. This is a good sign in here. I think this might be the place.
We were hearing faint bugles, and because it was still early rut, we were trying to see if they were responding more to the bugles or to the cow calls.
If it was a bugle, I don't know if he was responding to the bugle call.
Yeah, it sounded like the start, like a
The dense forest floor created patches of spongy moss that were like a springboard in thick timber cover. We came across a number of areas on the map that showed to hold water but were actually dry from drought. Streams and wallows were no longer in places they should have been. The lake and river water level had dropped significantly over a short amount of time. We came face to face with a wild herd of bison who thought we were the enemy. They rounded up their young in the center of their circle. We stayed put long enough, allowing them to make the decision to move along. We found a cut block that looked to be very promising. A bear was seen on the hill that we named the Lumberjack, due to all the thrashing about that he was doing in the trees. We hunkered down and heard a couple of bugles in the distance. This was definitely going to be a spot to return to come the morning. Bugles could be heard from the thick timber to our right and over our shoulder to the left.
Just listen. Just that call. Down over there, right?
And back into this cut block one more time. We had him screaming and bugling. Had him bugling yesterday before we had to pull out of here. So see how things go tonight. Okay.
We came back the next morning after a night of rain,
Do you guys see them?
only to be busted by a cow and a calf who were the last stragglers of the herd to leave the block after feeding. That night, cows and calves could be heard feet away from our campsite. The following day, we returned to the lodge for a hot meal and a warm shower. It's amazing what those two things will do for you after spending 7 days in the backcountry. I can truly say that we left it all on the mountain. Whether we were hiking through brush, thick timber, or logging cut blocks, we gave it all that we had. As I look at this elk, I wonder what kind of adventure was had. I want to know more. These 7 days in British Columbia have been an experience that will stick with us to the end of our days. I've heard the call of the BC wilderness, and I know truly in my heart that I will be back.